Hi, welcome to TcMenu Update. This is episode 1 and a bit of a catch up by Dave TCC. So, before anything else, let's go through what to expect from this update channel. So, let's start by saying that our previous videos were just extremely expensive to produce, and it resulted in there being very few videos on the channel and they weren't getting updated very regularly. So the updates are more of like an ongoing thing where we'll just talk about what's coming up, and we'll focus on a couple of features that are either new to Designer or new to the libraries each time around, or even things that people request. So if you leave comments saying, I wish you'd cover a certain topic, we'll try and cover it. And I'll try and keep them short and keep the editing down to a minimum just to make them watchable. So the idea behind these libraries is now 10 years old. And the first commit to IO abstraction was in July 2017. But it started from much more humble beginnings than that, really. And there was a lot of drawings on paper before anything came along. So I think, first off, let's thank all the contributors, especially Vladimir and Alice, the maintainers. Without them, I don't think we'd have got this far, to be honest. And secondly, I'd like to thank those who've contributed to the project, either by sponsoring me or helping out on GitHub. It's been really, really helpful. So let's move on to ESP32. So we've added support now for IDF 5.5, and which allows you to move to Arduino 3.3, which is the latest version. We've also started a path where you can now use IDF and you can install our libraries as an Arduino component. We'll probably create a separate video for that at some point. It'll be in one of the updates. But it's fully backward compatible as well. So if you're still on an older version of ESP IDF, it should continue to work absolutely fine. And lastly, we've also added the Preferences API, which has been a really long requested feature. I'm sorry it took so long to get it in there. So let's move on to TcMenu Designer 4.5. So it'll be built from the latest version of Java, and this time around it'll include an Apple Silicon build. So the benefit of that is it'll last for a good few years in a viable state. It's currently a bit held up on Windows by a signing certificate. They're a lot more costly than they used to be, but I think we've found an option now that we can proceed with. So what'll be in Designer 4.5? I mean, I guess the big new features are we've improved the way that plugins work. There's a plugin search now. There's also improvements to the themes, and there's support for e-ink displays in that version as well, along with a few UI fixes. In terms of the libraries, mainly small fixes, the ESP32 IDF5 support that we talked about, a few fixes in the renderer to make it start up a bit more reliably, and the ability at runtime to change a switch interval as well. So at this point, I'm going to bring up TcMenu Designer, and this week's view is going to be the font creator and editor, which is a new feature that was added in Designer 4.4. So we bring up the font creation tool from the code menu, and we're presented with this empty screen. And at this point, you can either open an embedded font that you'd previously saved, or you can import a new font. So let's import a new font. And let's say we wanted a font that was 14 points in size at 100 dpi, which is about what most embedded displays are. So at that point, we can choose which Unicode blocks we want. Now, if you're using, so this tool can produce either tcUnicode fonts or it can produce Adafruit fonts. If you produce Adafruit fonts from it, they're completely compatible with the standard libraries. If you use tcUnicode allows you to have Unicode font rendering, and it supports most common libraries that are out there, basically. So now we're going to attempt to upload a font. So let's just pick the regular font. We'll just go for Open Sans Medium. And you can see here straight away that we've now changed to a view where we can see all the characters in those ranges that we've selected. And we can see this one doesn't have a particularly good mapping of the extended ranges, but that shouldn't matter for us. So let's say that we want all the characters in here and all the characters in the next set. So then we can just select them like that, and we can scroll down and we can see all the characters. A little X next to it means that it's selected. And let's say for this one, we just want to select that one and no other font mappings. And let's say that we're not happy with this particular mapping. We can click on it and we can even edit a glyph. I'll just bring the editor over here. So it brings us into a small bitmap editor where we could make some small adjustments. Let's say we want to take that off and put this one on. Then we can close that and we can see straight away that the change has been made. So again, we'll just go through it again, edit glyph. The glyph editor comes up. We can edit the glyph in any way that we see fit, and then close it, and you can see the changes have been applied. And then we can scroll back up to the top. We can preview some of the characters, and it doesn't show you all of them, but it just shows you an approximate representation with what you'll get. And finally, once we're ready, we can generate the font. So in this case, I'm just going to select Export to Clipboard, and then I'm going to generate it as tcUnicode. Yes, so at this point, we've just created our font. If we'd picked Adafruit Graphics, we could use any Adafruit Graphics library to render it. If we pick tcUnicode, then if you're using TcMenu, using tcUnicode is as simple as ticking the box in the theme to say use tcUnicode. Otherwise, if you're using it in Adafruit Graphics or another library like UHG2, then you simply include the tcUnicodeHelper library directly wherever you need it. There are really good worked examples that demonstrate how to use it. We can see here that we create the Unicode font handler, and the font handler just takes a pipeline, and in this case we want the Adafruit one. Once we've got that, we can, I'm not going to go through this example in full because there's lots of documentation in the example, but effectively we can use the font handler object to get the extents of the text. We can use it to set the cursor, set the draw color, and to print. It looks very familiar if you're used to Adafruit Graphics. The only difference is, but you use the font handler object instead of calling print on the display itself. Then you can use UTF-8, and our UTF-8 decoder is a safe decoder that passes all known tests. And that concludes this episode. I hope it's given you some insight into new features in TcMenu. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe and like this video.